This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
From the gridiron to the ball diamonds, from the hardwood to the ice rinks, from the fairways to the octagon and everywhere in between. If it makes headlines, it's fair game on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network. And we welcome you to the Sports Reel podcast here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Tim Sheridan, I'm Jason Clouse. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week. And this week is going to be a little bit different in terms of when this show is going to drop. Ordinarily, this show would drop on Thursdays. While I was at work earlier this morning, overnight, because I'm a third shifter, I had this light bulb go off in my head, Tim, and I'm gonna shuffle the shows around a little bit. Instead of waiting for this thing to drop on Thursday, we're actually going to drop this thing on Wednesday at midnight. And Power Tripping Through the 80s is going to drop on Thursday at midnight instead. So those two shows are going to flip-flop this week. We already dropped the hot tag on Monday because we had an open slot there, and all that was coming out of the WWE pay-per-view that happened on Saturday. So that was time sensitive. So the whole week has been shuffled with the exception of the flagship show that dropped on Tuesday as it's supposed to. So with that, we have a lot of news to talk about here because you know what the cool thing is, Tim? From week to week, brother, the entire landscape of any sport can change on a dime.
Oh, yeah.
A week ago, we were talking about wild card games for MLB. Yep. And since then, the Detroit Tigers, when we went on the air last time, they had just eliminated the Houston Astros in the wild card series. Now here we are in the divisional playoffs, and all of these series are now tied as we record this on Tuesday morning. All these series are tied at one game apiece. And I cannot remember a postseason in recent memory that has had so much fireworks happening in just about every one of these. There is a storyline. There are headlines that are coming out of this. The San Diego Padres are really they're making a name for themselves. And I said that the National League was the Dodgers to lose. Well, now the Padres are making a pretty strong case for themselves, and now I feel like whoever emerges from this series, whether it's Los Angeles or San Diego, they're going to the World Series. Because as far as the Phillies and the Mets go, and take nothing away from them, they're playing, they're very decent baseball. They make no mistake about it. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. However, there's something going on in California right now, brother, and I don't know if a lot of that is fueled by this rivalry between these two teams, Padres and Dodgers I'm talking about. But after seeing the first two games of this series, I'm like, yep, whoever is emerging out of this one is going to be representing the National League come November, in my view. Have you been paying attention to the National League side of things at all?
I have not. I mean, I've been keeping updated with scores and seeing where the standings are, but I haven't had a whole lot of chance to watch much of those games. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that all four of these series are all tied at 1-1. I mean, what are the the chances of that. It's a little unprecedented, and I guess it's going to be whatever team in any one of these series gets hot at the right time coming through these series, and anybody could walk away with it. I think that's, Dodgers and Padres. I think you're right about one of those teams being the one that's going to make it to the World Series. They seem to be the two toughest in there. The Phillies are good too. I'm not a huge Philly fan, but I always kind of root for Philly, and I don't know why. In all sports, I don't know what it is with Philly. But yeah, I think you're right in that assessment. But I've been following the American League a little bit more than the National League.
Certainly, and especially coming out of Monday's game with Gary Carpenter, brother.
My God.
This dude, I mean, my God in heaven. I don't know who, and we talked about this last week, people that are going on TikTok and making these hype videos. Well, somebody took the music from Moneyball and made a video of that 3-run shot that tied the series up in Cleveland. And I'm like, we've talked about this. This is real life Moneyball we're watching.
Oh yeah.
But to see that clip with that music overlaid in it, I'm just like, this is something special. And there was a little bit of panic, man. There was a little bit of panic coming out of game one with a lot of Tiger fans on Twitter. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's the big collapse. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, slow the fuck down a little bit, guys. Just slow down.
Right. It's a best of 5, man.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I feel that because the Tigers have been so hot coming into this series. I mean, going through there and sweeping the Astros. And they've been so hot, and I felt like the first game in this series was kind of like, oh shit, did they just slow us down? You know what I mean? That first inning was rough, and it's like, did they slow us down a little bit? Did they knock us down a little bit? Can they come back from this? And it's, losing that game that bad. What was it, 7-0? I think was the final of that one. And coming into this game, and, you kind of felt a little bit better because Skubal was going to be on the mound. And, he's pretty much damn near unhittable now.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but watching that game yesterday, and you saw the stars line up, they started talking about how their closer is the best closer in baseball and all that other stuff. And I remember the Houston series, they were talking about how they have the best relievers in baseball, like they're unhittable. And the Tigers just, they ate them up and scored 4 runs in 1 inning on the one guy. But last night it was just like you could feel something was about to happen. They got those 2 runners on base, and it's like, oh, the stars are lining up. Here comes Kerry, and it's like, right. And I told Amy right before, I was like, he's going to fucking knock one out of the park right here. I was like, you watch. And boom, just pow. I jumped up, started screaming. I'm like, you could just feel that was going to happen. I don't know why. It's just like I felt it in my core, like, this is going to be it right here. I'm like, the way they were talking, it just reminded me of the Houston game, talking about how good their closers or relievers are, and, they're unhittable, and you get to these late innings, and, the game's pretty much over if they don't score early. And it's just like, it's typical Tigers. Take them into the late innings and just put them down there.
The thing, a couple of things. At some point, these national broadcasters on these networks that the Tigers are playing, that these games are being broadcast on, had better goddamn start putting some respect on their name.
Yeah.
Because I heard it in the second game with Houston. I heard it yesterday. They're singing everybody else's praises except the Tigers until they're forced to, i.e. the Carpenter home run was in this case. And you're right. And this happened, and it was very similar to what we saw in Houston in game 2 in Houston. They came out just calm, cool, poised, and what they fucking planned. There was no panic. There was and I have said this time and time again, for a team this young and overall inexperienced on this stage, to have the poise that they that they continue to showcase is what makes this team so damn special. I looked at game one, I'm like, they needed that loss. As fucked up as that may sound, I feel like they needed that loss to humble them. Because with all that hype, all that momentum, sometimes momentum there can be too much of it where you start to trip over yourselves. They needed to lose that game. And I'm glad it was that game that they lost instead of getting later into the series. You know what I'm saying? Because then, that momentum can go either way. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah, you don't want to get slowed down halfway through a series. You want to take those chops right out the beginning and then, come back. And I'm glad they came back yesterday because I think once they start getting hot and you put a win like that on them, I think they're going to be hard to stop in this series now.
Absolutely. And now, they more or less have home field advantage coming into Detroit for game 3 tomorrow, game 4 on Thursday. So they have the opportunity to wrap this shit up in Detroit to go to the ALCS. And oh my God, the atmosphere already is going to be off the charts.
Oh yeah,
come Wednesday. It's been a minute since the city has seen this, and it's going to be off the charts. It's a lot of fun. They regained that momentum. They were the Detroit Tigers that have become America's sweetheart. You know what I mean? Low key have become like, there's no shit reason why this team should be where they're at. And wouldn't that be something? We talked about this at work. What if 40 years later we got a Tigers Padres World Series? Wouldn't that be something?
It would be something.
Yeah.
It definitely would be. I just, I'm still feeling like that side's going to be the Dodgers, but, it would be something. I'm kind of hoping this next series, if we can get past this one, I kind of find myself now, I'm not, I'm a Kansas City fan when it comes to football, but I found myself kind of rooting them on to beat the Yankees. And now that series is tied up too. And it was kind of, they're going to be pretty, their fans are going to stand out, in this next game when they come home
City's,
too.
You mean?
Yeah. Because you could see it last night. I was watching the Kansas City Chiefs play last night, and that crowd was going nuts for the Royals last night too. Like they were all wearing their Mahomes jerseys and their Royals hats. So that city's about to get super loud too coming up here.
Isn't Mahomes like a minority owner?
I believe so.
The Royals or something like that. Yeah,
I believe so. I think he owns a soccer team in Kansas City too.
Yeah.
Or his
Man, you
his
talk
wife
about
owns
investing in your community.
Oh yeah, he's definitely stood out and invested in the community 100%. But he's playing it smart. He's investing in places where he's going to get a nice return out of his money in the long run. So
for sure. Kansas City, I'm with you. I am pulling for them just because I cannot stand the evil empire that is the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
Anybody against the Yankees, as far as I'm concerned. I can't think of a scenario I can't think of another team that I wouldn't root for against the Yankees. Like my hatred for that team goes that deep. But I am very much pulling for Kansas City here. I think it would be badass if the ALCS went through the American League Central.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A Detroit, Kansas City ALCS would be very exciting because both these teams know each other quite well.
Well, it just shows you how tough that division is too. We kind of got the same thing going on in football with the NFC North being probably the toughest division in football. And you got two from the Central in baseball still in it, still cranking away, and they could go on to the ALCS. Be a cool series. Plus, I think that would be the matchup I'd want to see the Tigers against instead of the Yankees. We know that team a lot better, and we just won a series off of them recently too. So I think that would definitely be my optimal series matchup that I'd like to see. We'll have to see what happens. Any team that's going to come home, just like the Tigers, the Royals are coming home now for the next 2 games. They could both wrap it up at home, and I think that you get those fans behind you, plus you're at home. That momentum can lead to finishing out series real quick.
Real quick, yep. We have seen that on a dime, and the Yankees are one of those teams that when they're hot, man, they are untouchable. But when they're not, and they're just kind of stumbling into the postseason, they're susceptible to quick elimination. Detroit has had their number in the postseason in previous outings, in their most recent outings with them. But they're still a dangerous team, even though Aaron Judge is not in Aaron Judge form right now. They're still a dangerous team, and if Kansas City can eliminate them from the playoffs, that is, in my view, that is the other biggest hurdle. Houston was the other one, but the New York Yankees would be the other. If we can get them off, then I would feel a whole hell of a lot better about our path, the Tigers' path to the World Series.
Well, it definitely opens up a much nicer road to the World Series for the Tigers, but the Tigers still have some work to do to get past Cleveland, because I don't want to say it, but Cleveland does look pretty damn good.
Sure.
It took a lot, that beating that they took, in game 1. It was kind of scary to go down, 7-0 and go, shit. Is this? I still believe in this team, but is this team got it? You know what I mean? And they proved last night that hell yeah, they still got it. They just, they got closed out on game 1, and they just closed out Cleveland on game 2. So it's going to be exciting next couple of games. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm worried that, I still think we're lacking a starting pitcher. We got Scooble, but we don't have any other starters, and that kind of beat us up in game 1. We have a lot of really good relievers, but to stretch them out, you're going to start getting thin if the series goes, to game 5. It's going to get real thin quick. So we'll see how that goes, and then you still need to get ready for the next series. And I think they're just, that's why I think the Tigers, if they can win it this year, it's a fairy tale story. I still think they're thin in some positions, but they've done something really cool this year, and it's something really cool to build off if they can't make it. I still 100% believe that they can. They're hot at the right time. They just still prove that they're still hot, and I think that win yesterday is going to be a momentum swing to get them through this series. But even if they don't do it, they know what they need to do to build now. We need some starting pitchers.
Right.
I don't know. Bats, they've been hitting really, really well. What other position could you think of that they would need besides starting pitcher? If they had another 2-3 good starting pitchers, I think this is definitely a World Series team, like hands down, and like favored to win it. That's the one thing they're lacking right now.
Yeah, that's really the biggest hole that I see, because A.J. Hinch has been remarkable in positioning the players like chess pieces.
Yeah.
There is never a set lineup. There is not, he is very much off the cuff, and it has paid dividends, especially with Houston. But this is part of what has brought the Tigers to this part of the season right now, because not only does he have that capability to play his players like chess, like pieces of chess, the opposition don't know until the last minute what the fuck they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So there's that psychological advantage to it too, man. Like, That's why, but it's what drives me nuts about people who tell me baseball is the most boring sport in the world. It's because you're not looking at it beyond what's just happening on the field. It is strategic. There is a rhyme and reason for just about every goddamn thing you see happen. You got to think beyond. You got to get into the minds here and really dial into it. That's what makes it fun.
Oh, yeah. No, he's definitely making it interesting. I've never watched a series, and I mean, it didn't work out so well in game 1, but I've never watched, game 2 of the Houston series to have 7 different pitchers in that game and strategically place them where he wanted them. He'd pull them out halfway through an inning because it was a better match. He plays the match. It's Moneyball, like we've been saying all along. He looks at the numbers and he puts the best matchup in there, whether he needs to pinch hit somebody, and he's moving these pieces around. And a lot of these guys are playing multiple positions really, really well. Usually you don't see that too often. I mean, I've never seen that. We've had some of those, players in the past that could play multiple positions on the field, but it seems like the majority of this roster can do it. They can sit there and move somebody from outfield to second base to shortstop to third base, all over the place. And they just, who can get on base? That's what they're doing. And everybody seems to be defensively, they've been really sound, haven't made too many mistakes. And to be able to switch that many players out and through that many positions and still defensively be sound, it's a really good young team. Like, I'm really excited to see where the next few years lead, even beyond this year.
That is a fantastic point in the fact that he has multiple players that you can interchange and switch out and put wherever. Where back in the day, every era of the Tigers had one or two utility players. Brandon Inge and Andy Dirks come to mind right off the top of my head. Especially Brandon Inge. Like I remember one weekend, I think he covered every goddamn spot on that field at some point.
Yeah.
Including pitching, because they ran out of pitchers for that game.
He got a lot of hate, and I don't know why, because I really liked him. Like I remember there was a lot of hate.
Forget about Brandon Inge.
Does he hate Brandon Inge?
Absolutely, he does.
I don't know why. I always liked Brandon Inge.
I don't. He never did anything wrong.
No.
Like, I don't know why. I'm with you. I don't know why people shit on him the way, because there were times, man, he come in clutch. He was the one guy that did bail him out.
Yeah.
But he never got the overall love and admiration like his peers did, like his teammates did. Why? I would like to know that.
I think in that time, if you look back, there was a lot of superstars on those teams at that time, and it's hard to get a utility player like that up to that level when you have, Cabreras and Prince Fielders on the field. So maybe that's why, but I always really liked him. He was a good piece. Another one, Andy Dirks. I like to say, I miss hearing him in the booth right now that they've gone to the postseason. Not hearing him anymore, but he's got a TikTok page too. I've been following him. He's been keeping updates going. I always liked Andy Dirks. But yeah, I never understood the hate for Brandon Inge.
No, I don't understand it either. I never will. We're recording this on Tuesday morning, so at the MLB lineup is both of the National League games this afternoon. Phillies are at the Mets. Dodgers are in San Diego to play the Padres. Now, Wednesday, as this show drops, we will see Cleveland in Detroit. That's at 3:08. The Phillies will be at the Mets at 5:08. The Yankees are in Kansas City at 7:08, and Dodgers and San Diego at 9:08. So a lot of baseball.
There's a lot of baseball. And I hate the fact that Detroit's not getting its respect and getting one of those primetime games later on in the day, because I get stuck half at work trying to watch the damn games on my phone. And it's like, come on, guys, give these guys a little bit later of a game. It makes it easier if I could sit here at home and watch it on my 75-inch TV instead of my freaking 5-inch phone, but you got what you got.
It's a great point, because the other American League game is in Kansas City. It's an easy swap, and why would you not put the Tigers in prime time when that's what the whole fucking sports world's talking about right now?
Yeah.
Why would you not capitalize on that?
I don't know. I don't know if baseball has the ability to, because I know football has flex times for games. They can flex a team in and out depending on, if a team's hotter, they can run them to the prime time schedule. I don't know if they do that in baseball. Not 100% sure. It'd be nice to see the Tigers go a little bit later. I mean, they're the hottest team in baseball. Like, why wouldn't you want them in that primetime spot? They're going to get you more, more views. You're going to get better ratings.
Right. And that's only going to make the advertisers happy. And
Yeah.
so why would you not? I feel like more of America would tune into a Tigers game than a Yankees game at this point. Because
Most likely.
who the fuck is talking about the Yankees?
They're always going to run on the Yankees because it's that large market team with years and years of success. They think that that's going to be the one to get them the most ratings, but people root for underdogs. And right now, Tigers are probably the hottest, biggest underdog in the league right now. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully we're still going right now. It's saying we're trying to reconnect. It still records. There we go. But yeah, Tigers are the hottest, biggest underdog right now, and that's usually who people root for, who people are gonna tune in to watch. And I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Like you said, it's an easy swap. They're in Kansas City. It's Kansas City hour behind us.
I think they're an hour behind us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's right along those lines of just
really
being an hour behind us.
But,
I mean, I guess that would be a rough start.
Even then, I mean, I don't know. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, something's going on. I don't know if it's you or me, but it keeps popping in and out.
Yeah, your side, from my perspective, your side is a little grainy, but it does, once it goes in through the system, there's technology that will knock the grain out as best as it can. So it'll bring it back around. Okay. So obviously we don't want to go too far into speculation as to what could happen with MLB here with the playoffs. Like we said, Detroit could close this thing out on Thursday, and I mean, there's a number of ways all of these series could go because all of them are right now tied at one game apiece.
Yep.
This is a best 3 out of 5 type of series here, whereas the ALCS, NLCS kind of went 4 out of 7 for those of who may not be in the loop of that, because believe it or not, there are some.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears and focus on the National Football League, and we will start this segment by looking at the scoreboard from Week 5, in which we saw the Minnesota Vikings with a 23-17 win over the Jets. The Falcons beat the Buccaneers 36-30. The Bears over the Panthers. Are you kidding me right there? 36-10. Baltimore. Go ahead.
Credit due to, Chicago's starting to heat up, and Caleb Williams looks like he's starting to turn it around a little bit there. So I think they're 3-2 now. We'll get to them in a minute. So go ahead and finish.
Baltimore picked up a 41-38 win over the Bengals. The Miami Dolphins won they beat the Patriots 15-10. Washington beat Cleveland 34-13. Houston over Buffalo 23-20. Jacksonville picked up a win this week, beating the Colts 37-34. Denver beat the Raiders 34-18. Cardinals, kind of an upset win here over the 49ers 24-23. Green Bay Packers beat the Rams 24-19. The Giants over the Seahawks 29-20. Dallas Cowboys barely beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 20-17. And then the finale of Week 5 saw the Kansas City Chiefs with a 26-13 win over the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. I've got to believe that one of all these games was the one prominently on your radar. What else stands out here in Week 5?
All right, so first game this week was Thursday Night Football. Atlanta Falcons versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did watch that one on Thursday night, and it was a fun, exciting game. Kirk Cousins, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kirk Cousins was rolling Thursday
Yeah.
night. Like it was a fun back and forth game. Baker went for 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. But it's just Atlanta looks really good this year. I've been saying that for weeks now. I don't know if they're good enough to go all the way this year, but they're definitely onto something there. Cousins is starting to really feel comfortable in that scheme, and it's showing. It was cool to watch that game on Thursday night because it was a Matt Ryan got inducted into the Ring of Honor that night, and he was the all-time passing yards leader for that team. And I always liked Matt Ryan. To get to see him that night, and then I think also Cousins that night actually beat Matt Ryan's single game passing record that night when he went for 509 yards. So he knocked him down there, but team's starting to look dangerous. It was a fun game to watch. I like those, moderately high scoring back and forth games. Other than that, I found myself.
And as an MSU guy, I'm a fan of Kirk Cousins.
I like Kirk. He's a really good guy. I really became a fan of his when I was watching. Did you ever watch the quarterback series on Netflix?
No, I heard about it, but I did not watch it.
You should watch it. It really made me a fan of Kirk Cousins. He's just a straight, down to earth, good guy that he just seems like a normal dude, and he's just, I became a fan of him after that. Really good football player, really good game. But then we're on to, I found myself Sunday morning in London. I found myself rooting on Aaron Rodgers to try to get a win there. And Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that game wasn't as fun to watch. Both defenses looked really good. Sam Darnold did not do very good that day, which pissed me off. It was the first time that I decided to switch up my fantasy league lineup at quarterback and put Patrick Mahomes on the bench and go, Sam Darnold's been rolling pretty good this year. He's been consistently getting 30, 40 points in our league, and he gets me 1 point. So I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. Sam Darnold definitely got slowed down by that Jets defense. Threw for quite a few picks. But yeah, I found myself rooting on Aaron Rodgers there to finally knock them off, but still, even with Sam Darnold, I mean, he went for 179 yards, but it didn't make any difference. No touchdowns, quite a few picks, lots of turnovers, and Minnesota still found a way to win that game. I don't know if you saw any highlights from that one.
That's all I saw was highlights, and I'm with you. I was rooting for the Jets too, just so somebody would knock down the Vikings a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool right now to see there's 2 undefeated teams in the NFL right now, one of them being Minnesota in the NFC and the other one being in the AFC with the Chiefs, both 5-0. The last 2 undefeated teams left, but somebody needs to slow down Minnesota. I mean, the Chiefs can keep rolling and just go undefeated and go all the way on and, make it to the Super Bowl against the Lions, but somebody needs to slow down Minnesota. One game I did not get to watch, but I wish I did, was the Baltimore-Cincinnati game. That game looked like one of the most exciting games of the week. 41-38, Baltimore over them. Lamar went 348 yards, 4 touchdowns. Henry got slowed down a little bit with only 92 yards and 1 touchdown. Seems like a good week, but he's been consistently going for almost 200 yards every week. Burrow threw for 392 and 5 touchdowns, with Jamar Chase getting 193 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So exciting game. I wish I could have caught it. I caught highlights. Probably the most exciting game of the week, and I missed it. Another team we have to look out for is, where the fuck is Denver coming from?
I don't know. We were talking about that yesterday. All of a sudden, the Broncos are starting to fucking do something here, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, they're, 3-2 now?
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix, 206 yards, like finally showed out and did something, for coming off a week where they won where he only threw for 60 yards. He went 206, 2 touchdowns against Gardner Minshew, went 137 yards, 1 touchdown. But yeah, Denver, I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know if they can hold out, but they're kind of being a little sneaky and working their way into this. That division is going to be tough for them to win, but I doubt they could win that division. But they're definitely starting to heat up a little bit, and I think they're onto something. And maybe it's Sean Payton finally getting the pieces where he wants them, and he got rid of a lot of people last year. One of them being Russell
Right.
Wilson. He didn't fit the scheme that he wanted to run, and it looks like he's starting to get something heating up over there, and they're just secretively just sitting back there and just making something happen. Like you were talking in the thing, Cardinals 24, 49ers 23, definitely an upset. I don't know what's going on with the 49ers. Everybody was expecting them to come out and be the hottest team in the NFC, and I think they're losing record now, 2-3.
I think so, yeah.
This
is not what we expected out of them at this point.
Yeah. Same thing. Texans over the Bills, 23-20. Like, Bills were supposed to come out and be hot this year again too, and they're sitting down there too. Texans are starting to heat up a little bit. But I expected one of those teams to be the big contender against Kansas City when it comes to the AFC Championship. Along with, I thought Baltimore starting out the year, and Baltimore's heating up now too. They started off the season, they almost went 0-3,
All right.
Other than that, we get to the Chiefs game. Chiefs 26 over New Orleans 13. Mahomes went for 331 yards. Kareem Hunt's really filling in that Pacheco spot really well. And, I'm excited about it. He went for 102 yards and 1 touchdown. But you look at the possibility of when Pacheco comes back this season, having a 1-2 punch between Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, that's a nasty backfield right there. That's going to be a tough team to beat on the ground. With no receivers, we were talking about Juju Smith-Schuster last week. He needs to step up and start getting something going. He went for 130 yards last night. Like, somebody stepped up, along with that, Travis Kelce, he looked really good again this week. The Chiefs offense looked pretty good for what they have yesterday. Defense, like always, one of the best defenses in the league this year. Team's looking really good. They slowed New Orleans down. Carr went for 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, held Kamara to 26 yards. So nobody's running against the Chiefs this year. Like that's a tough defense, and nobody's getting a lot, through the air on them either. That offense, if they keep looking like they did, and you get Juju to step up and keep having games like that, that's going to continue to be a tough team to beat.
No, it's a great assessment. It's a great breakdown, and I love the fact that you're taking the time and pulling individual stats and things of this nature to add context as to what we're talking about, who we're talking about, and why these are people, these are players, these are teams that are making some noise. They're on the radar. They're on the radar now. Will they be on the radar at the end of the season? Are we going to be talking about them going into the postseason? Are we going to be looking, who are we looking at who's vying for wild card spots? Is it a Denver Broncos team that, like you said, they're finally starting to make some traction, start treading in the right direction? How much of that is Sean Payton influence and being allowed the creativity or the room to move these people around the way that he sees fit?
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world, and that is on full display. There was a lot of other headlines that came out of the Washington Cleveland game.
Yeah.
The fans in Cleveland, Ohio are absolutely in nothing short of a ruckus.
And they should be.
They should be. They have every goddamn right to be.
Yep.
I am not what you would call a Cleveland Browns fan. I don't particularly care for any of Cleveland's teams. That's just how it is. But I feel bad for Cleveland Browns fans right now. I legitimately do. To have your quarterback just give up, just walk right the fuck off. Like, what in the blue hell are you doing? What are you doing?
I can tell you. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I could tell you in that situation, Cleveland fans are, they're sitting back there watching what's happening to their team right now. And last year, it was a playoff team last year without Deshaun Watson. They brought in Joe Flacco, and it was a playoff team. They did really well this year. And then to have Deshaun Watson back this year, and they're probably super pissed off, to watch him quit. Like you said, just quit and walk off that field. One, if I was a coach, that guy wouldn't play another down this year. You quit.
Goddamn right.
You're done. Two, they're sitting back going, what the fuck what are they doing? What's the front office doing? Like, what's the coaching doing? Like, why the fuck did we get rid of Baker Mayfield? I mean, Baker's looked great down in Tampa. Like, what was the point of getting rid of him when they did to get Deshaun Watson? He couldn't even play a bunch because he's suspended for so long. Like, I don't, like, I'd be furious. That's just front office decisions that are bullshit. Like, how could you even trust your front office at this point when they're making it? And then to get a guy who just quits and walks off the field, that guy would not play another down for me. I don't care. You look what the Broncos did. We were talking about that. The Broncos are paying the majority of Russell Wilson's salary to sit on the bench for Seattle. Maybe it's time for Cleveland to make a similar situation. This guy needs to go. He's not good for the team. It's time for his run to end in Cleveland, and they might be waiting for something to happen. I know he's got more allegations against him right now, and they restructured his contract. I don't know if you heard about that if he gets suspended for anything outside of football, that his contract is null and void and they get all their guaranteed money back.
Oh, man. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently they restructured his contract in the offseason. Next thing you know, these allegations popped up. So if he gets in any trouble, apparently they get out of it and they get all their guaranteed money back. So they might just be
why then.
Yeah, that they might just be waiting at this point for that to be done. I mean, this season is at a loss for them, and they need to figure something out, for the future. But it might just be a waiting game for them to see what happens with this guy, and that might be, another reason why Watson's not really trying, because he knows it's just a matter of time probably before he's done, anyways.
Right. But still, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, this role and responsibility and the privilege that these professional athletes have. Not everybody gets to be a starting quarterback for a National Football League franchise.
Yeah.
This motherfucker gets to do it. It's on national television in a market where they are clamoring for a hero. Generally, the quarterback, regardless of who it is, that's the first guy that gets the attention, as it should be. It's kind of the general out there. But to conduct yourself in the way that Watson did. And I didn't watch that game, and the first clip I saw of it was on Twitter. And I didn't understand what the fuck I was looking at because there was no explanation. The only piece of audio that I heard was the commentator say, "Well, here comes the crowd in on him," and then he just walked off. It wasn't until I actually read the article like, oh, he actually just walked off the field. He was just like he was done, and I got so legitimately angry reading that because Cleveland. Cleveland's not known primarily as a football town. I don't feel like it is. I feel like they would be more known for their baseball team, moreover than their football team, just because the Guardians have traditionally had more success. So I look at that as a baseball town. But, you know, football unto itself is so popular. Cleveland is, it's a checkered franchise. Their lineage is checkered with the Browns, but this motherfucker still has a responsibility, and he completely failed.
Yeah,
Completely failed. The most unprofessional conduct I've seen in quite some time in any realm. And I cannot agree with you more. That dude wouldn't see another down of football.
yeah,
Absolutely not. He is done for the year as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. He wouldn't
So,
play another down for me. He'd be done. And if I was a Cleveland fan in that city and they kept playing him, I'd just stop watching. Stop going to the games. Let the stadium sit empty until they can figure this shit out, because it's the front office that's killing that team. And and a quarterback that quits like that. I mean, Cleveland fans, they've got shafted a lot over the years, and I understand that being a Detroit Lions fan, because there are a lot of years that we sat in the same position as Cleveland. Um, but that team has been shafted. You look at that team. Was it what year did they leave Cleveland and move down to Baltimore? Is that
was it?
I know they
Let
won
me
the
look
Super
that
Bowl.
up.
Yeah, they won the Super Bowl like right after that. It was the Cleveland team that went down to Baltimore, became the Ravens, won the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. And
Right.
then to watch their team leave their city and then go down and win a Super Bowl in a different market, luckily they got, the team back. But that
But did you consider it the same though?
no, it's not.
When they came back. Wait a minute. The suspension of the Cleveland Browns franchise after the 1995 NFL season and became the Baltimore Ravens. See, I felt like it was 95, but I also know that's the year that the Panthers and the Jaguars came into existence. So it was like 96 is
Yeah,
when it officially became the Baltimore Ravens.
yeah,
But yeah, they brought the Browns back, and it just like, why? Why?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's just one of those cities that probably deserves a football team. They just deserve a better front office. They've had decent team. I mean, it was a playoff team last year. They had something
Mm-hmm.
to root for. And then to come out this year like that, I feel bad for the fans of that city. They just keep getting shafted. You go from one year being really good and right back down the tubes again the next year. At least we got lucky with Detroit, where we got to watch the gradual build up the last couple of years. And they just continue to keep getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. It's hard to watch them go from playoffs to boom, quarterback's just quitting in the middle of a game because he doesn't want to go for it on fourth down. He just
Right.
nope, just gonna walk off the field. Like, yeah, that just needs to end now. I don't know what they need to do to. Doesn't matter who you put in there at this point. Let's just get him out of there and just finish up the season to see where they get, you know, and try again next year.
As a sidebar, has there ever been a franchise relocation that has pissed you off as a fan?
Mm,
Or like you saw it, you heard about it? I mean, obviously with us, we've been very fortunate. The only
yeah,
team that we've lost here in the state of Michigan is the Detroit Shock WNBA team.
yeah,
We've been very fortunate. Our teams have long histories. Um, but a lot of franchises have relocated, became new franchises, new teams, things of this nature. They have, in the case of Houston, in the case of Jesus, we can talk about the Raiders a couple of times because of all the moving they've done. The Rams,
yeah. The Rams moved a
um,
lot.
Yeah, I think of the Seattle Supersonics, which became the Oklahoma City Thunder. In the NHL, the Hartford Whalers, they got pulled and relocated. I believe they became the Phoenix Coyotes, if I remember that right. The Montreal Expos became the Washington Nationals. It drives me nuts. And then Houston, Charlotte Hornets, which became the Bobcats. Then they brought the Hornets back. There's a number of these franchises, Cleveland, that they have reestablished new teams in these former markets. I still, if I'm a Houston football fan, I'm pissed that they didn't bring me back the Oilers, but
Yeah.
now I've got the Texans.
Well, because they went on the Oilers went on to become the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then they brought the Houstons and then renamed them the Texans. Like I'm kind of a guy built on history. You know what I mean? Like I like the historic value. So not bringing the Oilers back, that name. At least the Browns got the Cleveland Browns back.
Right.
They came back. But to switch them to the Texans, the Texans is a good team, so they have a lot to be proud of. But they weren't a good team for a very long time. You know what I mean? They've had success in the last couple seasons, but yeah, I don't think any one of them have really pissed me off personally on a level of moving. The only thing that's really pissed me off is watching the Detroit Pistons move from the Palace down to the city because it makes it harder if I want to go to a fucking Pistons game, you know.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of moving around. Luckily, like you said, we haven't had to deal with that in our market. So maybe I'd feel, a little bit more pissed off if it was in our market. These are teams. Oakland, I wish Oakland wouldn't have moved. There's a lot of history with Oakland. Teams moved around a lot. The Chargers have moved from LA to San Diego, back to LA. A lot of moving, and I don't know if it's, at the end of the day, it's a money thing for the owners. But I know in certain situations, I like the history of a team where they're at, and I think they should stay there. But we don't have that kind of money. We don't own the teams. We can't make that call.
Right.
They're going to go to where they can go to try to make money, because money is what makes this thing run. If they're not making money, it's hard to continue to run in a city without any money. But yeah, personally, it hasn't affected me 100% besides the Pistons moving, and I miss the Palace. My God, the Palace was an awesome place. And it was sad to see that place get blown down. I understood the Silver Dome. The Silver Dome was pretty old. It was rough shape. Even after the Lions stopped playing there, we'd still go to, watch monster trucks at the Silver Dome. And it was cool to see that, for them to build the field downtown and be able to go downtown. Downtown's really nice now. I like going downtown now. It's cool for them to be down there, but I miss the Palace, not only for just to go catch a basketball game because it's 25 minutes down the road, but also it was a great place for concerts. Nothing sounded like the Palace. Like the acoustics in that place were amazing, and it was such a nice building. To watch them tear that down was just trash. So I don't know if
it made no sense.
Yeah. I know you have feelings on teams moving because you went over this with the last episode, or was it 2 episodes ago with Oakland?
2 episodes ago, yeah, about the A's. Yeah, I'm still pissed about it, and I will be for a long time. I'm not even close to bullshitting. Yeah. I feel so bad for. Especially you can go in the archives and listen to my rant. I cut about a 5-minute promo about it, but I'm sure there's going to be some example later on in the years to come. We're going to be talking about this again, or there's going to be new franchises. I keep hearing every year, it seems like, especially around spring training, that there are talks about MLB expanding by a couple more teams. Montreal is always at the top of that list to get the Expos back. I, as a younger fan, as a kid, the Canadian teams annoyed me, Montreal and Toronto, because this is America's pastime. What the fuck do we need baseball in Canada for? But now that I'm older and I've done research, and I realize how important the Expos were to the city of Montreal, not necessarily the officials, but the fans of the city of Montreal loved that team. And if they're gonna expand, go ahead and put one back in Montreal. They're clamoring for it.
Yeah.
They've had it, they've lost it, they want it back. It could be something in my view.
Yeah,
but I have weird fascination about shit like that.
You hear rumblings about the NFL adding more expansion teams in too, extending the season out a little bit farther with a few more teams. It's been a lot of talks about getting a team over in Europe. I know they've been doing a lot of traveling to Europe. And I think they could do well there. The logistics of it would be kind of a pain in the ass on a week-to-week basis, flying people back and forth, because that is a lot on a team to make that flight over there, especially if it's on a short turnaround week. Usually they try to line those games up to where it's, there's a bye week coming up afterwards for the teams playing over there to kind of give them time to adjust. But, there was talks a couple of years ago about moving the Chargers over to London. I don't know if that's on the table anymore. But there is talks of other teams coming in because they want to extend those seasons out anyways. I know Roger Goodell's been talking about years adding more and more weeks. I know they've added more, they've added another game in the last few years. Now we're up to 17. But I could see him in a few years trying to run this to a 20 game season, which I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I mean, football's a rough sport, putting these guys out there for more and more weeks, you're going to see more injuries. You're going to see more people down for longer. And this is why they've cut the preseason. But, I've heard talks about eliminating the preseason and just adding more games on the back end, on the regular season, because obviously they make more money off regular season games than they do preseason games. So they want to extend the season out for money purposes and not so much the health of the players. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to see some more teams get added. I think, a team over in London would be fun and help build, American football, a little bit bigger around the world. I know they're trying to branch to that market. They went to South America this year for a game. It'd be really cool to see. Whether or not they do, who knows?
I had not heard about the Chargers being relocated. I had heard about the Jacksonville Jaguars being relocated.
That's another name that was on the list.
Shad Khan owns a soccer team over there.
Yep.
Somewhere in Europe. And so he knows he's got his fingers in the pot over there. You know what I mean? So it would be real easy if they got the approval from the NFL to relocate Jacksonville over there. And that, to me, that if you're going to do that, that's going to be the easiest franchise to move for that very reason. The transition would be very smooth. Khan is already established. I'm sure he's got business partners over there. He's well known.
Yeah. But it'd be shitty for the Jacksonville fans, the team to up and leave. That's why I'd almost like to see just another offshoot team just built over there. Let's just, have an expansion team just boom, pop up over there if they were going to do that instead of moving. Because like you said, like taking a team away from the fans, that's a shitty thing for the fans of that city. I mean, luckily Florida's got 3 teams right now. Those people would just transition and, probably become Tampa Bay or Miami fans. So you'd have to look at a city if you're going to move a team. And I think that's a good one with 3 teams in there. California, another state with multiple teams. It'd have to be one of those states that have multiple teams if you were going to move one.
Right. Totally agree. Which I guess that's why the Chargers were considered at one point. Because, I mean, how many teams does Los Angeles really fucking neat, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're a
But
big
it's a
enough
large
market.
market.
Yeah, it's a big enough
Yeah.
market to support two teams. You know, you're looking at, it's like a New York market, you know, where you can
Yeah.
support multiple teams. I mean, you look at New York and I mean, New York, New Jersey, all pretty much the same area. In fact, I think Jets play in New York. Um, you know, there's three teams in that market. You could move one of them, but there's so much history with all those teams. They'd never think about a New York or New Jersey team to move. So it'd have to be, you know, I think Jacksonville would actually make a lot of sense if they were going to move one. I think you're right there, especially with Khan's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, if he's already got a soccer team over there, it means he probably already has a place where they play, and it would make an easy transition to focus into that arena or stadium. I think those are all huge stadiums over there. I mean,
Right.
soccer or, you know, football, whatever you want to call it, is the most popular sport in the world, even though it's not really popular here. It's starting to be get that way though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing more kids. I dropped Chase off at school, and I'm seeing a lot of kids wearing soccer jerseys now. You know,
Is that right?
yeah, like it's starting to grow with this younger, you know, this younger group. I mean, it's a mix of soccer jerseys, and you see a lot of kids and a lot of Lions gears these days.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah, it's starting to gain popularity, and maybe who knows where we'll be 10, 15 years from now. It might end up taking a pretty strong stance in America. You know, I don't know if it'll ever beat out American football, which is the most popular sport in this country. But
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to grow on people. Um, I don't know how you feel about soccer. You watch it at all?
I don't. I'll be honest, but I appreciate it what it is for
Yeah,
what it is. And as you were saying that, I was sitting here thinking, you know, in America, the NFL rules,
yeah,
but everywhere else, soccer takes precedent, and you wouldn't unless you really dialed in on the sport, you really wouldn't know that because of how soccer is presented and advertised here. Now, you know, there's American-based leagues and things of this nature, but I don't know why it took this long for it to get popular because it's popular in schools,
yeah,
popular in colleges. Why are we so far behind the eight ball in terms of a professional league? I thought sure we were on the cusp of something in '94 when the World Cup came here and had a portion of their tournament at the Silverdome. I'm like, well, holy shit! If this isn't putting it on full display, I don't know what will. There was a lot of buzz around that, and it seems like it goes usually around the Olympic years. It
yeah,
feels like because obviously it's going to be talked about during the Olympics, but it never really got to gain that momentum, put the rubber on the road to grow the popularity in America here, but Europe and all over the world, Australia, and like this shit is huge. Like these athletes, these soccer players are looked upon as gods almost. Like I mean, they hold a lot of clout in their respective communities.
yeah. And I've always wondered that myself. Why didn't it take off here? Was it, you know, strategically put off by American football for so many years, like trying to hold them out of this country? Because I mean, if you look at American football, it's pretty much was started out with a cross between rugby and soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of built it off and made our own version of bringing those two sports together, and you know, they created, you know, American football. Um, you know, maybe they got held off for so many years because they didn't want it to overshadow football. I mean, it's creeping in now for sure. I don't know, like it'd be hard to become super popular in this country against football, but you know, everywhere else in the world, like American football doesn't really mean shit. You know, but
Right.
soccer rules the entire planet.
I I may have had this conversation with Amy last season in terms of the popularity of the NFL, and it's kind of reached its climax here in America. It's like it can't get any bigger than it is right now. There's nothing that they can do or alter that can make that fan base grow any bigger in this country than it is right now.
No, you'd have to
This is
expand.
why we're seeing, or this is why we're seeing the expansion into other countries, other areas of the world that traditionally has never seen or does not have continuous access to the National Football League. They almost have to do this.
Yeah.
And I hate to put this in comparison, but you see how that works for professional wrestling. And even though, one is scripted and one is not, it is still a very viable fan base that I feel like the NFL is kind of low-key taking pages out of WWE's book by putting their product in other lands just to see what sticks.
Yeah.
London has obviously been very, very popular, very successful. South Africa or wherever else that they were at, you're going to start seeing this. I feel like if they haven't done so already, man, you got to believe Saudi Arabia is not far away, because these bitches are just looking for sports and entertainment to entertain their masses.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge market for them if they ever decide to go that way. But I think you're right. I think they're at their peak right now, and they're trying to push into those other countries. And as much as people hate it, flipping on a Kansas City game and seeing Taylor Swift in a box there every week, every time they're at Arrowhead, she's brought a lot of new faces to the NFL too. And could be, and that's the reason they keep putting her on TV. You know what I mean? She's not showing up there and going, "Hey, I want to be on TV all the time." It's the NFL strategically doing that to gain new faces, and it's going to help them push into these other markets around the world, because she's the biggest star in the world. Everybody sees that and goes, "Oh, Taylor Swift's at this game. We have to watch this game." And that's why, the Chiefs are the number one watched football team in the country right now. Their ratings are always crazy. They're almost like just a regular Sunday night game. They're pulling almost 30 million views in. Those are crazy numbers. The other teams are pulling in 10, 12 million. They're pulling 30, and it's because Taylor Swift's there. So I understand why the NFL is jumping on that bandwagon and showing her as much as they can. But I think she could also.
What team is she rooting for?
Yeah, well, obviously.
Right.
But she could really help bridge that gap without even trying. Just being at a game, she could bridge that gap into these other countries. Especially, there's a good following in London, but she doesn't hurt them going, to these other countries and even making a bigger stand in London. And that's why, one of those teams that they usually send over, like they did last year, was the Chiefs. They mix them up every year. But yeah, they have to do something to get bigger, and you're starting to see pop-ups. There's different countries that have their own little leagues now. I know the next Olympics, they were talking about putting flag football in it. That'll help bridge that to kind of help introduce the sport even more, even though it's flag. It's still bringing American football to a main stage around the entire world by adding flag football, and I thought that was really cool. I'm waiting to see how they do it. Are we going to see some of these professional NFL players play flag football in the Olympics? It would be, be kind of unfair, for some of these other countries. You put a Tyreek Hill or an Xavier Worthy, some of these fast guys on those fields. I don't know if these guys are going to keep up with these guys.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I feel like it is inevitable that somehow or another they're going to figure out a way to put a full-blown franchise, whether it be a brand new or relocation in London. I just feel like they've had enough trial and error with previous games. Okay, there's enough interest. Yeah, we're going to have to figure out the logistics of it in terms of getting players and personnel over there week by week, all depending home or away, don't matter, because you got to get them back over to the States too. So, yeah. It's going to go both ways every week. It's like, man, what do you do here? So, unless they create kind of like a secondary league, NFL Europe, and actually make it their own NFL. That could be an option too, I suppose. But is there enough interest to necessitate or to facilitate an even a 6-team league? Who the hell knows?
Yeah,
You got
I
to
don't know.
run
Yeah.
some numbers.
I don't know if that would be the way to go. I think it would be, if they were to do something like that, they'd probably somehow, I mean, I know they work closely with, like, it was the XFL, it's at the UFL now. They work closely with those guys now. I mean, that could be something that they transition that league over to Europe, and see how they do over there. But I don't think it would garner anywhere the attention that the NFL does. I think it'd have to be for it to be successful, and I think London would be the starting point for them, because you watch those games, like London or even the Germany game last year, those stadiums are packed. You have a fan base there. They're all decked out in their jerseys, like they're loud, they're having fun, they're packed. They could be successful in that market. It's just logistics. How do they do it? I don't think a secondary league would work out well. It's just like you think NBA has a European league pretty much, where they pull players from, and you don't ever hear about it. Who watches it? You know what I mean? It wouldn't garner anything from this market, the U.S. market. So I think that it would have to be an expansion team over there, or just move another team over there for it to be successful. But I think if they added, 2 teams, they'd probably want to go 4. But if they added a few teams, you could add a few in the U.S. There's a lot of cities in the U.S. that still don't have, a lot of markets that could do really well in the U.S. that don't have a team right now. Even if you drop one back to, if you give another team back to St. Louis, obviously St. Louis is, had a team before, and they could have another team, maybe put another one back in Oakland. I could see that being a reality. Both those teams move out of there. The Oakland, Raiders, and then the Oakland A's. I could see, even on the baseball side, them eventually putting another team back in that market. The market supports it, so why not run with it? But they could add enough teams to garner adding at least one team over in London, maybe even one in Germany. Germany does really well when they go there, but it's logistics to. But if you added 4 teams over there in Europe, that would help out with logistics, because that'd be their own division, and you could cut back down and have each one of those teams play each other at least twice a season, and it would help not have so many teams come over. So it's money and finding people who want to invest in a pop-up team over there.
It's a great idea, though, instead of having one team incorporate 2 to cut down on that. That's a great idea, actually. Yeah. I really appreciate that. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander at what we got on tap for Week 6 here in the National Football League, unless there's anything else you want to touch on in Week 5 before we get to the preview.
Yeah, I think we're good on Week 5 there, so let's look at what we got for Week 6 in the NFL.
All right, we are coming up to Week 6 here, and it starts off Thursday night. The 49ers are going to be in Seattle to play the Seahawks. The Chicago Bears are going to be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars Sunday morning at 9:30, and then the early 1 p.m. games, the Cardinals and the Packers will be playing in Green Bay. Indianapolis Colts will be in Tennessee to take on the Titans. We will also see the New England Patriots hosting the Houston Texans. The New Orleans Saints will be hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will see the Cleveland Browns in Philadelphia to play the Eagles. And the Washington Commanders will be in Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The later games, like the Chargers, will be in Denver to play the Broncos. The Steelers will be in Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Dallas will host the Detroit Lions at 4 p.m. The Carolina Panthers will be hosting the Atlanta Falcons. And then Sunday night football, we will see the Cincinnati Bengals take on the New York Giants. And then Monday night, the Bills and the Jets from MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. That is week 6. I know we here where we're out of. Very much looking forward to this showdown between the Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. This is becoming a low-key rivalry game, at least from the Detroit perspective. They're going to be going into Arlington with a chip on their shoulders, I've got to believe. I know you're going to want to talk about this game. Is there any other games from week 6 that you are looking forward to?
I want to see the 49ers versus Seahawks. I want to see if 49ers can start turning around the season, because right now they are falling slowly for a team that was supposed to be, the number one favorite in the NFC, just not doing very well this year. So that's a game to keep an eye on. Packers versus Cardinals, got to keep an eye on the Packers. They're low-key doing really well in the North too right now. Lions versus Dell. We'll get to that. The Cincinnati. We were just talking about them flexing games in and out. They really should look at flexing that Cincinnati Giants game out to the Lions and Dallas game, switching those two around. The Lions and Dallas would make more sense to be the primetime game thing, because Cincinnati's not doing very good this year, and the Giants are, they're not good either. So that would be a good flex game to put out. And I heard they were talking about they wanted to switch it out with the Baltimore game, but they got shut down on it, because the Washington-Baltimore game would be a way more exciting game too. Also, another game that should be prime time. That's another game I'm going to keep an eye on, because Washington is low-key. They're hot right now. They're dangerous. And that's a team to keep an eye on. It's going to be another really good test for Baltimore. Baltimore's heating up right now. Let's see if they can just keep it going. They're rolling really, really well. Dangerous team in the AFC, so I'm keeping my eye on them closely, because that could be another AFC championship matchup. Bills versus Jets. Kind of both teams that are kind of struggling right now. I will probably watch it because that's the Monday night game, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that one I'll watch, just because that's what I do on Monday nights, is watch football. Other than that, the Lions versus Dallas. We'll get into that one. First off, I have to say Decker was eligible. He reported as eligible. Chase has a shirt that says that's all it says was Decker reported as eligible from last season, and then it says that the game Detroit beat Dallas. But I'm going to keep an eye on that game. They have definitely built quite the rivalry there. Obviously, Detroit fans, we hate Dallas. Dallas is struggling this year too.
Yes,
they're not clicking. I saw CeeDee Lamb and going off on Dak Prescott. I don't know if you saw the videos of that. Their offense is off. They're not getting along. Defense is struggling bad. The Lions obviously have, probably two of the best running backs in the league, the best 1-2 punch combo, and Dallas has one of the worst run-stop defenses in the league right now. So it should be an interesting game. I think Detroit can run all over them and put them down. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Lions defense has been looking a lot better this year. I think they added some pieces from last year, and that defense is definitely probably one of the top 10 defenses in the league this year. So it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think the Lions are going to struggle with this one. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think the Lions are going to have pretty easy time with Dallas this time around compared to the last game we played against them.
In comparison, absolutely, I do. Absolutely, they are playing Dallas at the perfect time. I feel like Detroit's coming off a bye week. Dallas is all over the fucking place. Dak Prescott has yet to, in my view, start living up to history-making contract that he's got. All the stars are in alignment for Detroit to march their happy asses right into Jerry's world and just leave that man in a fit of anger on their way back out of Arlington after 60 minutes of football. The Detroit Lions are not to be fucked with. And the Dallas Cowboys and all 100,000 of their fans are fixing to find that out. Now, here's the other thing about that. How many of those people, of those 100,000 people that are going to be in AT&T Stadium are going to be Detroit Lions fans? Because this is what we're seeing across the board, man.
Oh, yeah, Lions fans are traveling really well.
Fuck, yes, they are. They were in Los Angeles. They were in Kansas City. They have been all over the place. And not Kansas City, I'm sorry, Arizona.
Yeah.
Arizona sounded like a home game for the Lions.
I saw pictures of people post there, and they were like, it looks like we're at Ford Field with all the blue and white jerseys all over the place. Like, they're traveling really well. Just like the Tigers are the hottest team in baseball right now, the Lions have been one of the hottest teams in football the last 3 seasons. They're low key. Still, people are treating them like the underdogs, but they're not the underdogs. This is a team built to win. They're built to win. People are still treating them like that. They don't get the respect that they deserve. And the Lions, it's a badass football team, a lot of fun to watch, and they need to start waking up, realizing, putting some respect on their name. And you hear some announcers, that are feeling that way also, but still they don't get the full respect that they deserve. I think this season's going to be the complete turnaround. I think people are waking up, opening their eyes and going, you gotta try against the Lions. You're not going to just easily walk over the Lions and beat them. Dallas is going to probably have that chip on their shoulder going, we always have Detroit's number, but I think they're in trouble this week.
I would agree with that. And I believe this may be the America's Game of the Week for Fox.
I think so.
I'm looking at this right.
Yep.
So okay, it's not prime time, but they're getting the A broadcast team, number one for Fox, and two, you put America's Game of the Week tag on it, it's going to generate a certain degree of interest. There's going to be other teams. I imagine CBS is going to broadcast probably the Denver game, if I had to guess, Denver or Las Vegas. But Fox is definitely, they have almost the exclusive rights for Dallas. So that is going to be America's Game of the Week by America's team.
Yeah. No, the Lions are America's new team.
Got that shit.
You've heard that moniker quite a bit, that the Lions are America's new team. So, the Lions, it's exciting to be a Lions fan right now. We've struggled. This team has struggled the majority of my life, and I've been a Lions fan since just a little kid, as far back as I can remember sitting there with my Uncle Ryan watching Lions game when I was younger. A lot of people, there's a lot to be proud of right now, and it's fun to watch them. And I missed them this past week. This week I'm excited for Kansas City's on a bye week this week, so I don't have Kansas City to watch, but damn sure got the Lions back to watch this week. And I think I'm more excited to watch the Lions this week than I was Kansas City this past week. So,
okay.
Plus it's against Dallas. So, I just want to see him destroy Dallas. Fuck Dallas. Fuck Jerry Jones.
If we could get another performance like we saw in the 1992 divisional playoff game where Detroit just stomped the shit out of them, like 44-3 or something crazy, that would be a definitive statement. Yeah. I would be so there, man. What a statement that would be. Anything to make Jerry Jones's face turn 5 shades of red and looks like it's just going to pop right off his shoulders, I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just waiting. it's going to happen. Like that old man, like that's where he's going to go. It's going to happen in that stadium during a game because that's the narcissist that he is.
Yeah.
Shut everything down. I'm dying.
Yeah.
Then he's out. You know what I mean? That's just.
Oh, you could see that too. Especially, did you see the videos this past week when he goes right in, drops his helicopter in the middle of practice right on the field while they were practicing? It's like, dude, you're such a fucking dick. Like, these guys are sitting there practicing. You go, I'm so important. I'm just going to drop my helicopter right in the middle of the fucking field to show up to practice.
He's a douche.
Yeah. I just want to see him.
Complete fucking douche.
Okay, I'm so excited for this game this weekend.
You know, as an option, and you know, if there is another game that is on the radar where you're like, man, this motherfucker is must see, we could schedule something and do a live watch along during that game. On the podcast feed.
Yeah, we're gonna
something to think about.
Yeah, that'll probably be something we really need to look at, especially when it comes to playoffs. You know, we get into playoff football. I think that's going to be a strong possibility to sit back and watch one of these games because the playoffs, I have a feeling, are going to be super exciting this year. And it's going to be teams that I have a weird feeling it's going to be teams that are going to come out of left field. They're going to make it to the playoffs this year and have good runs. Obviously, I think the Lions are going to be right up in that mix. Kansas City Chiefs always are, but I mean, you look at teams like Washington that are coming out of nowhere. Teams like, who knows, the Broncos. You know, they're sneaking up out of nowhere right now.
Right.
I'm hoping that Minnesota doesn't even make the playoffs. I hope they just start slowly dwindling off and they finish out their season with only 5 wins. Let's call for them to go no more wins this season. I can't talk about them until they lose.
I feel like Miami Dolphins are going to go on a tear, and they're going to come one game away from the wild card. They're going to get that close. Yep.
Maybe.
That's my bold ass prediction.
That just depends if they get Tua back or not. Like, I'm still on the mindset that without Tua, they're nothing. But I mean, they won this past week. Who knows? They got Mostert back now. He did pretty well this week, so their running game is back. So maybe they can turn something around here. I mean, I think Mostert led the leagues in touchdowns last year, rushing touchdowns. So maybe they can get something going on the ground. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's going to be, ground and pound, and they can make their way one game away from the playoffs, and at least have something to hang their hat on.
Yeah. Between Miami, Jacksonville won last week. I mean, if Carolina had won, I would have gone out and played the lottery for sure. There's no question about it. I totally would have, but I only got 2 out of 3, so I ain't fucking with it. But it's all right. Just goes to show, man. We say it every week. It seems like any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Any team can knock off another one. Doesn't even matter. Just doesn't matter. Anything else you want to throw out there this week before we start winding this down?
Just go Tigers, go Lions. At least by the next time we record, we'll know what's going on in this series. So we'll know if the Tigers are still alive in this thing.
Or if they're going to the ALCS against either the Kansas City Royals or the New York Yankees. Yeah. But you can stay tuned to the Facebook page because Tim has done a remarkable job with posting different graphics and results and keeping fans in the loop as to what's happening as these games conclude, especially with the Tigers. If you have not done so already, go over to Facebook, check out the Sports Reel podcast page, hit that like button, hit the follow button, get the notifications each and every time, because once we get 100 followers, then we're going to start doing live streams. And this opens a whole new door of opportunity, and we want you guys to be a part of the conversation. So help us get us to that point. Hit the like and subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, share the show, and let's get those numbers up so that we can provide you with the absolute best in sports and entertainment that you're only going to find here on the PFC Entertainment Network. And be sure to check out the online store, pfcstore.printify.me, for all the latest merchandise of this show and all of the great podcasts for our network. With that, we appreciate you tuning in here this week. Go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other. And we'll see you next week, right here on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network.